Hey everyone! So today we are going to be doing a tutorial on this neocities website right here. It is modeled after the second page of my main neocities. As you can see though, I didn't include a couple things like the music player and like these two sections, these pictures right here, because I didn't want the tutorial to be super complicated and long. This is only my second time doing this and I got some constructive feedback from the last one. So I'm not trying to make things too complicated, but if you do want to see some more in-depth, bigger websites, please feel free to let me know. My socials are linked in the description. But yeah, I'm going to try to explain how to do this as best I can to someone who may have never coded before. Just bear with me. If I could explain things in a better way, please let me know. It looks like a lot and there's a lot of interactive elements, but I promise you it is not that hard. Once you make the first section, all the other sections are pretty similar. So we're just gonna go ahead and get started. I'm gonna explain this, like I said, as best I can. So the first thing you're going to want to do, obviously, is create a new neocities, a new page if you already have a neocities, or if not, create an account. I will leave a link in the description for like the very bare bones, like basics, how to make a neocities account, like how to edit a site, make a new site. So if you have no idea what you're doing, please go check out that video. It's in the description. But once you have an account and you've either created a site or created a new page of your site, you can name it whatever you want. I've named this one Recreation because I'm recreating a site I have already made for the sake of this video. This is the code that you will have already provided for you, and then this is what your site will look like. Obviously, there is nothing there. If this is your first time making a site, you might have some stuff in between head and body, like in between in this section here. If so, just delete that. You should have something to begin with that looks like this. We're gonna go ahead and get started with the first part here. So all of the websites I'm using, all the pasty bins especially, will be linked in the description so you can follow along as so. So the first thing you are going to want to do, again, this first part is kind of just styling. It's not necessary for your neocities, but I think it just adds an extra element. So you are going to add a little favicon in the browser. You can see kind of what that looks like there. So you will copy this line of code here and you're going to paste it literally anywhere. I think you can just paste it right there, and then you're going to find a pixel. I really like this website with all these pixels, and once you've decided on a pixel, you're going to copy the image address. I already have the pixel I'm using in my Google Doc. Once you have copied the image address, you are just going to paste it here, and then this is the little title right here. So the words that pop up next to the favicon, right now it says my page. I'm going to change it to I love coding. And then additionally, you are going to, this again is optional, but these two lines of code here, we are going to add them. This is like the little thumbnail that is provided when you send your site to someone else or when you post it on social media. So a method I use to upload pictures is Card. You can do this with a card free plan. You do not need pro or anything. I literally just have a card with a bunch of pictures and then I paste it, and I have this website that will be up forever because I am in control of it. And so I will copy the image address and then paste it right here. And it's best to do this yourself rather than just copying the image address from the website itself. For sites like these that most likely will be up for a long time, I think it's okay. But if it's, especially if you're getting it from somewhere like Pinterest where the site or where the image can easily be taken down, it's best to save it to your own computer or device and then upload it somewhere else that you have control over and copy and paste it. Because if like the person on Pinterest decides to delete that picture, it will no longer show up on your website since the site that it is linking to no longer exists. So once you have that done, what you're going to want to do is delete this line of code right here. It's really important you do this that is what makes, deleting that will make your website look relatively similar layout wise on a mobile screen as it does on a laptop. So please make sure that you do that. And then once you're done with that, that is the beginning part there. And sticking with the common codes pasty bins, we are going to copy this line of code. Again, completely optional, but it is disable, copy, and paste. So basically what that does, if someone right clicks on your card to see the source code, it makes it a lot harder for them. They can't, a message will pop up telling them to like, please not do that. So after this body tag right here, you're gonna paste it, and then you can change the message right here in between these two quotations. I have my own message, but of course you are welcome to change that. And now we are going to add a cursor. Again, not necessary for the actual site. I just think it adds one more level of like style, beauty, whatever. So a link will be in the description again to this website. There are so many different cursors you can look through, and once you found one you liked, you are going to copy option 1, and then you are going to paste it right after the script end tag, and you are going to delete everything after the end style tag. So all this stuff right here, you're just going to delete that. All right, and a few more things before we get into the actual website building. Hidden scroll bar, so that there isn't the, in my opinion, kind of ugly gray scroll bar when you scroll. That is a code that is already provided for you, and you just need to paste it. But it is really important that you add style tags. This is where all of the styling of your website will go. So just like so. And then we are going to add selection, which basically when you, as you can see, when you highlight like I'm doing right now, instead of the default blue color, it will be, in my case, brown, or depending on what color theme you want to do, you don't have to do the same one as mine. So you're just going to, within the style tags, you are going to paste that and then change the colors as you want them. I believe my colors were this brown color, and then I just have white. So white is this first color code is the background, and then this color code right here is the text. And then I believe lastly, the default color of links when you link to somewhere else is blue, which may not go with your theme. So if you copy and paste this little line of code right here, you can change that. I have it black, but as default, but for this case, I believe I want it white. So you would just change that, and then that's pretty much the basics so far. Really quickly, we are going to add in the fonts, which you can find in the CSS pasty bin. So there are a lot of fonts. You can change the fonts if you want. You do not have to use the same ones I do, but these are just the ones that I picked out that I think look nice. You literally just copy and paste it. That is it. There's nothing else you need to do. And now we can get into actual coding. So for the body, which is basically just the background of the website, I have that in the neocities common codes because it's pretty much the same no matter what website I'm doing. So you are literally just going to copy and paste like so. And then the only thing you're really going to want to change is the background image. So I have it already picked out in the Google Doc, and make sure you paste it in the quotations like so. But there is a website that will be in the description. This is where I found my background. They have so many good backgrounds, and if you search by like color, like you would do like a color within the backgrounds category, you'll find really good options. Like let's say I wanted to use this background, you'll do the same thing that I showed you how to do previously, which is copy image address, and then you would paste that image address right here in the body code. So we can save it, Anytime you want to save and see your progress, you are welcome to do so. Obviously, this is what we have so far, just the cursor and the background, and then the other things you cannot see yet. But we are going to get into the actual website. So the first thing is obviously the entire container, this like brown thing right here. So for that, I used an image border, which I'll leave a link in the description to this website, which is one of probably my favorite resource ever. If, for instance, you're doing a pink thing, you would just copy this code and replace it instead of the one I used, which I believe I used, we can find it, this one right here, the chocolate. So you're going to copy all of this, and you are going to do, since it is a div class, dot container bracket, and then you're going to paste the code and then end bracket there. And if you wanted to change the border, you would replace these 3 lines of code, because this is what makes the chocolate border, with whatever 3 lines of code you picked out. Like if you wanted this one, you would copy and paste this code and replace it with what I said, these 3 first lines there. So that is that. We are going to be adding the CSS before we add the actual HTML. So basically the difference between the two is the CSS is just the style, like how these elements are going to look. And then the HTML is actually implementing the elements. So putting the text within the container and the container within the other container, that type of stuff. So the HTML is like organizing the website, and then the CSS is how those organizational elements look, if that makes sense. So next we are going to do the first container, which is this one at the top right here. So you will just copy the CSS there. Container /1. You are going to want to use the same element names as me if you are copying my HTML directly, because I did not change the element names. So if you change the element name up here, you're going to need to change it when you implement it in the HTML, like how you see it says container, or it will not populate correctly. So for container 1, the only thing you're going to want to change is the background image, which in our example is this little brown heart, which again I found from the website I was talking about earlier. So I'm just going to copy that and paste it there. And then we can move on to the elements inside of the container. So we'll do the name first. And instead of the dot before, we are going to do a hashtag, so hashtag name. And the reason, the difference, as you can see once we get to the HTML, we have div class container, which is the main big container with the chocolate border, and then container 1, which is the one we just did with the image background. And then instead of a class, a div class, it is going to be an ID, since it is a much smaller element that needs to go into a bigger class. We just change it from a dot to a hashtag, which is just the difference between ID and class. It's not really necessary, but in case you were curious, hopefully that is a decent explanation. You don't really need to understand it. Half the time I don't understand what I'm doing. I kind of just do it. So yeah, and then the only thing you're going to want to change is the actual color of the name, which I have in my Google Doc, the color code that I used, but I didn't want to leave it all with the brown colors in case you were using a different theme. I thought it would be easier that way. So yeah, just replace the color, and then you have the name. And that is pretty much it for the top container. Once we get to the HTML, we will implement this border at the top, and I will explain how to do that. And next we're going to move on to this little image right here, which is basically a border image with another image on the inside. And again, same thing applies if you are interested in doing a different border. You can look at this website, which has many different options, and then just replace the lines of code that I talked about earlier with whatever border image you choose. So this is the outer image. And then obviously we need to do the inner image. and you will just need to replace the image link with the image that you want to use. And for this one, like I said, I used the card method. I'm just copying an image address and then pasting it in here, so that image will be there as long as this website is up. Next, we're going to work on, sorry, my tabs are a bit unorganized, this container right here, which is a code that I am using from this website, which a link will be in the description. I did not want to re-upload this person's code, so please get the code directly from this website. I love this resource so much. I'm a huge fan. I use their codes literally all the time. So we're going to be using this one, and it's so nice. It literally has the CSS and the HTML laid out for you. It makes it so easy when working with neocities. So we are going to copy the CSS first, and then we are going to just literally just paste it. And then in my Google Doc, I have some things that I changed. You are going to want to change, sorry, I just got an email. I don't know if you heard the notification, but the background image, obviously, as it is that pink image, I'm again using an image I found from this website. Highly recommend. So you're going to replace that like so. And then you're going to add a line of code. Depending on your image, this may not be necessary, but since my image is like one little square, I obviously want it to expand across the whole container. So I'm going to add a line of code that says background, repeat, if I can type properly, repeat, semicolons, just so that the background spans across the entire container and isn't just one little square of it. If you have a really big image, you won't need to add that line of code. It just depends on your image. Next, we're going to add some stylized things. So literally it could be anywhere. Like I changed the width from 100% to 50%. And then instead of the border being black, I made it white, I guess. And then obviously we need to do some positioning. So I use relative positioning. It's up to you what type of positioning you want to do, but since this container is to the side of an image, we need to move it over a little bit. So I'm moving it below our first container. So these are the numbers I'm using. You can obviously use different numbers depending on, you know, how you want your elements to be positioned. And then since we've already used the word inner for the inner image, you can't have multiple classes with the same name that have different styling, because then your code's not going to know which one to actually implement. In the HTML, I literally just changed it to in instead. And I added a font. I'm using the Pixel font. Again, you do not have to, can use whatever you want. I'm just adding it there, literally anywhere in the code. And then I've added line height to make the text a bit closer together, completely optional. And then I changed the height. I did 103 was my number of choice. And then this box shadow code, which I will most likely leave a link in the description to this this Google Doc. I'm going to change a few things, but I'm realizing now you probably can't just type this line of code from memory. So I will leave a link in the description to this Google Doc to find like this line of code and some of my image links if you want to use them. Yeah. So yeah, you'll get that from this line of code from the Google Doc, and you will just paste it there. Again, the box shadow just makes it look nice. It is not necessary for the code itself, but once you have that, that is that. And now we are going to do the introduction text right here. So back to our pasty bin. Dot intro. And you will just want to change the color of the gradient background. So I have this dark brown color, but you are welcome to do whatever color you would like. Next, we are going to do our first mark, which is going to be this highlighted text that you see here. And this, there is no hashtag and there is no dot before it, because if you look in the HTML, little sneak peek, this is how you implement a mark. You just do a start mark and then the text and then the end mark. So you can, it doesn't have to be mark. As you can see, we have further on, we have ones that are called like hello, bye. It is just for like, if you have an element of text and you want certain words to be different within the text, I just found that that's the easiest, most efficient way to do it. I hope that that makes sense. Again, you don't need to understand it. I am still learning how to understand it. But yeah, you'll copy that. And then again, you just need to change the color. And the rest is already done for you. Make sure that you have a start bracket as well as an end bracket. Alrighty, and now, if I can find the right tab, we've already made these top 3 things right here. We are going to move on to this, I call it an iPad. I don't really know if it looks like an iPad, but to me, it is an iPad. So we're gonna start with that. We have .iPad. And then you will just need to change the background of the iPad. I have it as this light brown color. Ooh. And make sure that there is a hashtag before the color code. I'm realizing I didn't explain this because the color codes work the same across neocities, cards, most website builders, but if you're not super familiar, I will have some links in the description where you can find color codes like that align with a certain theme. It is basically just a combination of 6 letters and numbers with a hashtag in front of it that corresponds to a specific color shade in the color wheel. So that is the format that most, CSS accepts, is that this corresponds to a light brown. You just have to make sure you have the hashtag before it. And then this I just called Apple for no reason. And you are going to, whatever color your background is, you are going to want that same color to be your inset border for it to have that kind of like dug in look. And then the iPad has many elements. As you can see, it has like the outside, the screen, this little thing at the bottom, the text bubble. So I put all of that into one container to position it where it is on the website, which I just named 4 because I think it was the 4th container I made when I was originally making this site. And then those are just the lines of positioning that you will use. And this is the receiving bubble. So this is going to be the texts that are being, quote unquote, sent to you. And this, again, you're going to want to change the background color and then additionally the border of the text bubble. And then next is the messages you are sending. So I just named it bubble 2, and it is basically just the same code, but with the shape adjusted a little bit. And then you will use obviously different colors. I used the same border color, but the background color is different. And then the bubbles are in a container that is within another container. So this is the container that the bubbles are in, the chat container. So this is literally just allows for the scroll effect and just positioning it inside of the iPad. So I just named it chat, and there's literally nothing you need to change unless you want to adjust the positioning. But that's up to you depending on your site. Okay, next up we are going to move on to this container here with this like cool divider image, and then buttons. If you click on this button and this button, it will lead to my YouTube and Pinterest, so you're welcome to put your socials, or if you have another page of a website, put that there. I've called it the navigation container, or Navi for short. Again, with the dot in front of the name and the start and end brackets. And I believe the only thing I changed was this border color here. And then we are going to go into the buttons themselves, which, similar to the mark, it is just going to be the word button with no dot, no hashtag in front of it, so that when we add the buttons, we can literally just do button, put the stuff inside the button, and then end button, like that. And you are going to want to add the background of the button as an image, so find whatever image you want from. I will have more links in the descriptions to additional graphic sites if you're interested. As you can see, I have another link from my card that I've copied. I believe it's this chocolate image right here. So you'll copy and paste it there within the quotations. And then that's pretty much it for that. And moving on, we only have 2 more left before we get into the actual HTML. We're going to be doing this. I didn't know what to call it. I just called it scroll container inside another container. So in my original site, this is where I put my information about commissions, so I named it .com. You are welcome to name it something else. The name doesn't matter, but if you do name it something else, you need to make sure that you change it in the HTML to correspond, or it will not show up properly. So I believe, yeah, the only thing you need to change is the radial gradient background. I did a brown color. Again, depends on your theme of your website. Okay, and next I did image mask, which as you can see, this text right here has an image as a background, which is another code I got from this lovely website. So I didn't want to re-upload it. Again, please support this person and get it directly from there. They have it all laid out. Again, I will make this Google Doc available or something so you can access my notes if, you know, the video is hard to follow along. You will literally just copy, and then obviously you're going to want to change the background image. It is another image I found from the Glitter Graphics site that I've been talking about pretty much all video. And then I added, I changed the font. Again, like to reiterate, you can use whatever fonts you want. You can use the same fonts as me. Does not matter because it doesn't have a specified font. And then I added, yes, I added margin bottom 5px so that there is space between the text and then the next container within the container. So now we're going to do the top container, which is this thing right here, and the rules, this isn't text, those are images. So we will implement that once we get to the HTML, and I will explain how to do that in case you are confused. So I named this top, and then paste it, and we just need to change the background color, which I have right here. And then we are going to do bottom, and I believe this doesn't have any colors that need to be changed unless you want the background to be something other than white. But I'm assuming your text will be dark, so. And I did want to reiterate, we'll save the website, but even though you are adding CSS, since you have not added the HTML, nothing will show up, nothing will be different. Things are changing, but you just cannot see it yet. So don't be concerned if your website, like, you've been working at it and it looks the same. So this line of code I just copied here. I've named it hello, so it's just going to be this little square with the numbers. So again, we're just naming it hello, no dot, no hashtag in front of it, because we're going to implement it directly. It's not a div class or a div ID or anything like that. You're just going to want to change the background color. And then similarly, I named this text right here, the gradient text, I named it by, just to match. And the code for that is again in the pasty bin, like everything else is. And then you're going to want to change the two colors right here. I believe I have a dark brown and a light brown, and I'm just going to replace the entire line of code to save time. Boom. Okay. Make sure after every line of code that there is a semicolon that is touching the word, the last character, and that it is only one semicolon. So now that we are done, we will go outside of style. Make sure that you are doing your HTML right here before end body and end HTML and after end style. So now we can actually work on the HTML, which is super exciting. So the first thing we are going to do is implement our main container. So I have all of this on the pasty bin, but I'm just going to type it out so you can see, just to start, kind of how you would do this on your own, without a reference. And now you can see we have the container. Boom, it showed up. It's literally as easy as that. And then we're going to want to put things within the container. So pretty much all of our code goes in this container. Oh, sorry, in this container. So we'll do div class container 1, and then end div, and we want to put things obviously within container 1, but this is how it looks now that we have, see how easy it is, see how simple. I love it. Sorry, this is just so fun. So now we will talk about how you get this. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry if the switching of tabs so quickly is like crazy whiplash. But this lacy border here, I recommend, again, all of these will be in the description, this awesome Tumblr page. They have literally dividers for days. But as you can see, the divider is only like one small section of it, and so it needs to be repeated multiple times. And so how you are going to incorporate it, or how I incorporated it, is pretty simple. You are going to get that image link. You can copy the image address, like I said, directly from the Tumblr page, although even though I'm doing that, I wouldn't recommend it. You should probably upload it somewhere else so that in case it gets taken down for whatever reason, it won't, delete it from your website. So you are just going to copy that, and then you're going to do img image src equals, and then within quotations, you're going to paste it like that. And then you are literally just going to copy this like however many times it needs to be copied. Copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste. So that's 5 times, and we can see how it looks. So we need to copy and paste it more. Let's try that. Okay, maybe like one more. Beautiful. And then we are going to add our name, which this is a div ID, not a class because of the hashtag. Not that, I don't really think it matters, but. And you can title it whatever you want. And there you go. Your first container is complete. Moving on to the next one, we want to make sure that we have this div at the bottom so that it is still within the main big container. This one is really easy because you literally just going to copy and paste this line of code because you already have specified in the CSS portion what your inner image is as well as what the outer border code is. So that's it, and then it will show up there. And since it's like on the side directly below, there's no positioning needed besides what has already been established in the CSS. Moving on to the introduction box, I will explain. So we're going to want the background of the introduction box and then the box, the scroll box itself. So we have div class. Again, you can copy and paste this directly from the pasty bin. I just figured doing this kind of helps you understand it a bit more. So background, and then in, and then we want, which this is the introduction, so we'll put introduction, and then I have added, as you can see, a little pixel next to it. That is completely optional. But I think it just adds a little extra oomph to the website, I guess. So again, I'm pretty sure I literally just copied and pasted this, the image address from this website, which again will be in the description. And then you're going to end div, because that is it for the introduction text. And then you're going to get into the actual text itself, which has already been specified in the in class. So you can literally just type, I'm going to copy the text that I have, put so blah, blah, blah text. And then this is how you would make a mark. So this will be the highlighted text like this. And then again, I have another pixel at the end, which is right here. So we will add that in. And then I'm just going to copy and paste my text, but we'll do div. And you have to have two end divs because you started two div classes, background and in. So I'm just going to replace the example text with my text, and you can see what it looks like. A really quick note, I did adjust the height of the inner box. Instead of 103, I put 91. For some reason, the height wasn't matching the reference card. So we are just gonna quickly change that on the Google Doc for you guys. If heights and widths and positioning looks funky, no big deal. Literally just play around with it. Use different numbers until it looks right. 91 might not be the right height for your website. Just play it by ear. It is a little panicky, but it is not the end of the world. It will all come together in the end. So now moving on, we're going to do the iPad next, I believe. So I'm just going to copy this big chunk that I have in the pasty bin and then try my best to explain it. Again, make sure that we are before this end div here. So here we have 4, which is a container that surrounds every single element of the iPad to position it in the correct place. And then we have the actual iPad and then like the iPad screen. And then we are going to have the end div for the screen because the screen isn't the whole. There's obviously that little chunk at the bottom there. And then we have chat, which is the container that allows for the bubbles to scroll and only be in the screen part of the iPad, not the entire iPad. So then we have bubble, which obviously this is the receiving message. And then we have bubble 2, obviously end div for the first bubble, which is the sending message. So now I'm quickly going to talk about if you want to add a link within your texts. This is the format. So you will put where link goes here, you'll put the actual link, and then where it says like this, that is going to be the name. So link goes here, you put the actual URL of your Pinterest, for example, and then like this, you would put Pinterest, and then the target blank, you are, that little line of code right there, you are welcome to delete that, but that just makes it so that when someone clicks on that, it will open in a new window and your website will still stay open in their browser. It won't, you know, reload the page and take them to your Pinterest and close out of the website. I just think that's a bit nicer, but it's up to you guys. And then I have another pixel, which you are welcome to keep or delete. And then the little thing that says style equal width 15px. If your pixels are a bit bigger, it could mess with like the lines of the text, you know, like the pixel's really big and your text is small. So I've just made width 15px is a pretty good size. You're welcome to delete that, you know, little line of code, but I just think it makes the pixels fit in with the text line, if that makes sense. And then end div, and then you have the other bubble, and I have some more pixel images, some more links you guys can use. Really, this is just a template and you can fill it out. We'll see how it looks here. Obviously, this would be the link, the little white text, and then the little default images is where you would put your pixels, but again, you can delete it, play around with it. It is completely up to you. And I'm just gonna replace it with my actual code. And this is how it looks when I have edited it to match. So all my links will lead somewhere, and then I have my pixels loaded in. It took me a minute to figure out where to copy and paste. But yeah, and you have all of the end divs. You're just gonna put them over to the side, and again, start more HTML right before. There should be one end div at the bottom there. And I did really quickly want to go over, I know I was forgetting something. See how like all is italicized? You can see our highlight working now. I will leave a link in the description. Sorry, my thoughts are a little scattered. To this website, which I think is super cool. If you want to italicize a text, you'll format it like this. As you can see in my example where I have all, I have it like that. So all is italicized. You can also do that with bold if you want a text bolded. The pixelated fonts don't really show bold that well. It works on mobile, but for some reason on computer, not as much. It could just be my laptop settings. If you want a text underlined, aligned, font colors, again, it shows you how to do a URL, how to input images. I just think that this is a good thing to refer back to until you get the hang of adding text with HTML. So yeah, I just wanted to go over that super quickly. We are almost done. We are on to the buttons. So we're just gonna, again, copy and paste the template that I have and then go through it. So we have the navigation and then the border image, which is gonna be like this one right here. It's completely optional. I believe I found this from this website, which I love this website. This is where I got the letters for the this container, so I will go over that, and they have a really good section under materials for dividers. We will actually just look at that really quickly, and if you scroll down to the bottom, it has like really good, like kind of bigger dividers, and I believe I found that the image that I'm using there. So we're just going to copy it there, and then I have again styled the width. That is just so I've made the width 281 because that is what makes the size of my image fit into the container. You're going to have to adjust that number unless you are using a different image. Unless you're using the same image as me, sorry, you will have to adjust that. And then as you can see, we have the link to my YouTube, which we are going to put right there. And then we're going to name it, instead of socials, we will name it YouTube. And then we will put in our pixel. Which is right here. And you will do the same thing for the other button. And if you want to add another button, you would literally just copy from a href to the end A. This whole thing is one button, so you would just paste that below the last button before the end div to get a third button. And again, if you only want one button, you would just delete that one line of code. So we're going to add my Pinterest now. And then the pixel. And again, you can delete the image src for the pixel if you don't want a pixel. If you just want the button to say something rather than link somewhere, you would delete the a href, target blank, the a at the end, and just have it be a button. Beautiful. Okay, looks the same so far. So we're doing good. We're on the right track. 2 more containers to add. This one, the container within the container, is probably the most confusing, the most complex out of everything we've done so far, just because there's so much going on. But I don't think it's, you know, anything too crazy. It's all the same stuff we've done, just a few more extra steps. So we have the outside container, and then the image mask, which you will put title here. So in my case, comms. And then the top part here, and you will put the letter images here. So like I said, I found them from this site, and I made it spell out rules using these little biscuits right here. So that is 5 letters, so I had 5 images. So it's like the same thing we did with the first container here. You just copy and paste image src, image src, image src like 5 times, and then you would replace each image link with a different letter, if that makes sense. So and then that is it for the top part. And then here we have the bottom, which is like the part with the actual text. And then in between the hello tags are the numbers. So 1, and then we have our info text, another link, which within the link is the by tag to give it that, you know, gradient, the stylized mark like you see with Twitter. So that is kind of already all templated out. You would just need to replace the link and then replace the text. And then we have a BR, which you're gonna, if you decide to add more numbers, you are gonna wanna, in between every like number in the text, you're gonna wanna add the BR in the brackets here, because that is just a space. That just means move on to the next line, basically. And then we have a highlight without the link, so just a normal highlight, and then obviously another pixel, because who am I without my pixels? Image or line break, and then move it on to the next number 3, image, or I don't know why I keep saying image, line break 4, line break 5. So we will see how it looks so far. So obviously I have comms, rules, and then this is how the text will look before you stylize it to yourself. You have the link, the highlight, a pixel, another link, just a regular highlight, and then another pixel. And you can, again, add more numbers if you want, but just make sure to add the BR with the brackets in between everyone. And of course, if you only want it to say like one thing, you can delete as much text as you would like. Okay, quick little note. Sorry for jumping back and forth, but before the title of the buttons, if you have a pixel beforehand, you're just going to want to put a space. I left it like that in the template, but for some reason I deleted the space. See how the pixels are touching the word? Now they're not. That's just a personal thing for me. Okay, and now lastly is this section, which is literally just 3 pictures positioned and stacked on top of each other. Just makes the website look nice. Not necessary, has no function, but very easy to do. So we are going to go into the HTML and copy this line of code and put it all right here. And so this is this background image, the heart, and then the doll. Again, like I said, all positioned and stacked on top of each other. So I found, I'm pretty sure, the heart and the background from Pinterest, and then the doll from this website. They have a doll section, which I think is so awesome. So again, this is optional, you can do what you want, but I just think it looks good in my personal opinion. So yeah, the positioning, you are just gonna want to play around with the positioning. I have this first image is going to be the background, which, since it's from Pinterest, I have uploaded to my neocities. And in case you're wondering the difference between EM and PX, EM is a lot bigger than PX, so PX will typically just be, PX is if you want it more precise, you'll use like a smaller kind of measurement, and then EM is if you're trying to move it, a big thing across a big space and you don't need it to be exact, you would use EM. At least that's my interpretation. If that's wrong, please let me know. Again, I don't really understand a lot of what I do, but hopefully that makes sense. And then the background image, at least mine, has a height, and then the heart and the doll do not. I just had added a height so that it would, it's a little stretched out from the original image, but you can't really tell, so that it would span across the entire thing. Depending on the images you use, you can add or delete a height. If it's the perfect height, great. If you need to stretch it out, then just, adjust that height in there. And then we have the heart, which I think the heart is cute, but it's not really, like I said, it's optional. You can use another shape or frame in the background, but if you would like to get rid of that and you just want the background and the doll, literally just delete this entire line of code. And I left my original numbers in the, in the code. Sorry, I'm been recording for a while, can't remember my words, I guess. But unless, like I said, unless you're using the same exact images as me, you are going to need to adjust that. And then lastly, we have the doll image, which we will paste like so. And then you're going to save it once you've adjusted your positioning and your heights and whatnot, and refresh the page, and boom, it's looking great. So yeah, that's literally it. You have just made a functional, working, interactive, full page of a website. If I didn't explain things very well, or you have any constructive feedback, as long as you are nice about it, I would love to hear it. Again, links will be in the description to everything I've used, this website, so you can refer back to it to make sure all your formatting and styling is good and whatnot. Yeah, if you need help, run into any issues, please contact me down in my socials below. I would love to make more of these videos. If you have any layouts you want to see, ideas for websites I can make and then teach you guys how to do, again, leave a comment. Socials will all be in the description as well. Yeah, I feel like there's more to say in the outro, but that's all I can think of right now. So yeah, as usual, thank you guys so much for watching. Please let me know if you need help. Please give me ideas for more videos. I would love to continue doing this. But yeah, until next time, I really, really pray and hope that this was helpful. Bye-bye.